welcome back into the matchup report. I almost said NBA, but we've been doing a lot of that lately. But this is the NFL matchup report, actually, because we're going to be talking about the NFL draft. It just happened last week, so we had time to look some things over. Jay did a show at WHIP at Temple University, of course. Shout out to them. Fantastic show that I was a part of as well in the past few years. So I hope if anyone didn't check it out, please do. Amazing content over there at WHIP. But we're here to talk some NFL draft, man, because you've been locked in on this for months now.
Yes, I've seen way too much film, watched too many mock drafts, a lot of bad ones. Read so many different reports on these prospects, and it's weird because I even talked with EJ Smith, someone who does this professionally, and is around the Eagles, and his consensus with this is that this was a really weak draft class, and to some degree, I agree. Because I think a lot of the biggest dictator for these draft classes is usually quarterbacks. And when your top two quarterbacks are Fernando Mendoza and then Ty Simpson, you're looking at this and saying, all right, like, what else is happening? And I think it makes sense when you consider why a prospect like Dante Moore decided to return to Oregon and was like, actually, you know what, I'm going to stick it out. And I think part of that is, like, nobody wants to play for the Jets. But I think the funny thing is that all the memes where he was like, oh, he's like, I'm decided to return to Oregon. They were like, don't worry, the Jets will be waiting for you next year anyway. And it's hard not to. But maybe Aaron Glenn truly believes in Geno, and this Geno stuff does come true, and Geno is the one to take them to the promised land, like they're saying.
It'd be great for my brand.
But I remember reading that and being like, really, Geno's? You know what? And I was like, Tyler will understand this a bit better. Maybe he fully believes that.
I mean, if you want me to go on a Geno Smith tangent, I can do it right now. But like, I don't know if the people want that.
Let's hold off on that one. But yeah, like within this, and yes, you could say it was a weak draft class. I still think there was a lot of great talent, especially in that top half, and even in some of the later half, we saw like historical drops with like historical like draft falls with a player like Jermod McCoy, who, like, insane that he fell down into day 3 to start like round 4. I think is insane when his talent is clearly, like, he was top 10 before the ACL injury. So altogether, it was a crazy draft. Lots of trades, lots of activity. But I think in the end, and look, we were gonna do this, and I came up with 5 winners, 5 losers, and 5 like to be determined. Like very high upside, but also very low potential as well, where it's like this could just end up being a very mediocre draft class for that team. So we're gonna probably miss a couple of teams. It doesn't mean that you didn't have a good draft or you had a bad draft. It just means like yours wasn't as noticeable or yet notable as the other ones that I'm mentioning, where it was like very like really good, really low, or like especially somewhere in the middle mediocre, or like I want to see more from them. There's a lot of good picks on paper, but then you look at the fit and you're thinking, all right, like I need to see how that plays out before you can really make a determination. I know that literally is the case for literally all of these when you think about the draft, but I think especially you can look at some of these players and say like you're going to make an immediate impact on this team.
Yeah, and there's always different philosophies that go into drafting, and like people are like, oh, this guy dropped, and you mentioned like this was like a weak draft class, which it's true, and a lot of people talked about that leading up to it. Part of me, like, I think that's sort of like where you see teams like, and not to glaze them already, but like the Eagles, that's where they'll do their work. Like that's why you saw them make so many maneuvers within those first couple of days, and then they're just kind of saying like, okay, these later picks that we have, we're not going to worry about them too much, because if the strength of the class is up top because it's a weak class, then we're going to focus on that, and then we can make some maneuvers later on. And then you have extra third round picks. That's why they make a trade for Jonathan Grenard, right? So it's like that's why every draft is kind of fun, because each draft is its own thing, right? All the different players, all the different philosophies, new GMs that come in, random stuff that happens. Like it's always that's part of what makes it entertaining and fun. But it's tough, man. Like drafting is never easy. I mean, ask the Steelers, right? So. Well, sorry, but yeah, I'm excited to hear your thoughts on who you think what did well and who didn't.
Okay, so I'll start with the winners. I think for me, the first winner that stood out, it was the Jets. We were talking about Geno Smith. I think the Jets had a very solid draft class, but with that being said, I still I wouldn't say it's my favorite of the draft classes, solely because I mentioned that like those question marks of how things will fit. It's part of those reasons. So they obviously drafted David Bailey, number 2. And with David Bailey, you're getting someone who is the purest pass rusher in this draft class. And I think the big talk leading up to this was, is it going to be Arbor Reese or is it going to be David Bailey? I personally was on the Arbor Reese train solely because you saw the way he was wrecking things. You saw how he was damaging it and just completely messing up like offensive lines. And the man didn't know a single, like, he was still learning the edge position because he's an outside linebacker. And I think to me, and yes, like I know, like it's you're looking at that and saying like, are you looking for upside there? Like it's a risk to get somebody like that. But if this is his floor and he's saying like, oh, I didn't even know what some of these pass rushing techniques were. I was just out there doing stuff. To me, I'm like, that is insane. Like his raw athleticism and the potential that you're having right now. You get him with a solid edge coach and like actually work, especially under a defensive coach like Aaron Glenn, who can develop these type of things and expand. I thought Arbor Reese to me made a lot more sense than David Bailey, but from a standpoint of an immediate impact, which is the biggest thing you're going to get from David Bailey, you're going to get someone who can instantly rush the pass rush. And this is a team that didn't have a single interception last year. How do you kind of help that? You get somebody who can rush the quarterback speed at the time a little bit, maybe force some bad throws and bad reads, and David Bailey can definitely do that for you with an immediate impact. So like I said, I really like Arbor Reese more, and especially from a versatility standpoint and being able to move him around. But you're still getting somebody in David Bailey who can immediately rush and impact and make an impact on your defensive line. And then you went and drafted Kenyon Sadiq, which to me was one of the bigger surprises. Solely, and I'll say solely because they drafted Mason Taylor last year in the second round, and I was like, all right, like, what are you kind of cooking here? And look, I completely understand it when you think about the roster construction of the Jets and saying like, all right, like you need more weapons, and especially if you're trying to if you're trying to set up what we think is going to be a quarterback next year coming in, why not build the weapons now with you already have Garrett Wilson there. You drafted Kenyon Sadiq. You also drafted Omar Cooper, which I'll get to a little bit later. Kenyon Sadiq is an athletic freak where it's like he is literally a receiver in a tight end's body with great body control. I think the physicality and the blocking is something naturally is always a question for these athletic tight ends, but he's willing to block. Obviously, like the technique needs to be refined a bit more, but the effort is there, and I think that matters a lot when you're thinking about this, and especially because you can have Mason Taylor be the more Mason Taylor be the more blocking tight end and use Kenyon Sadiq packages where it's like as a receiver in a sense, because he almost is a receiver with his route running ability and his just genetic like freak stuff. And we saw that, like, why he shot up is because of his combine performance. Like, he was originally mocked to fall down to the Eagles like late in the first round, and then he moved all the way up to fall to the Jets there. So I think to me, and I think that pick as well kind of like just scrambled the remainder of like that middle to later half of the draft, because teams were like kind of split all over the place. But I really do. I like it. I just want to see how the fit's going to work with Mason Taylor.
Yeah.
And then I mentioned Omar Cooper Jr. He'll be a nice slot receiver for them. He did a great production at Indiana, winning a national championship from Fernando Mendoza, and can be impactful, especially the biggest comp I've seen from him is a Deebo Samuel. And I completely see that when you're watching the film. You see how effective he is, especially after the catch, getting the ball into his hands and saying, all right, go out there and create stuff. They can do a lot of stuff. With that, and we'll see. I'm interested to see what that looks like and how they utilize him, because you can move him around and do a lot of different things with him, like you can with the Deebo Samuel. My question, and like that kind of wraps up all the offensive players that they got, like, well, and David Bailey's defensive end, but what, like, I don't know if I can trust any Jets offensive coordinator actually utilize all of these players well, and I think that's like my fear with this is that, like, all right, yes, great offensive additions with Kenyon Sadiq, Omar Cooper Jr. You have Garrett Wilson still. How are you actually going to utilize all these weapons? And that's a fear that I have with the Jets. But the final pick I want to talk about that they went and added is D'Angelo Ponce. He is a very, very undersized like DB, but he's a nickel DB for you who plays aggressive, plays with a lot of speed, plays with a lot of physicality, especially a lot bigger than what his size may say. So you can line him up as a nickel DB. So I really think he's a good addition for that Jets defense. I just once again it's just a combination of like how will this all play out, and I think like the Jets, I think I have more questions than any other team solely because they're the Jets and these things just don't work out for them.
Yeah, so I'll go real quick just through some thoughts on these. So David Bailey, I think that conversation kind of almost was like the Aiden Hutchinson like conversation when he was coming out when they're like, okay, like traits versus production, which is always a conversation that you get a lot of times when you have these like top edge rushers come on out. And I mean, if you look at it, right, because I don't mind taking the guy who's like a proven commodity, right? Like you always have the raw talent that you can work with and like you can develop in that, but a lot of that is like hope. Whereas like if you see on film that they're able to be and like the numbers show that they're able to be productive, I think for a team like that is a lot of times like the safer bet. Like because like like think about it too, like a team like the Lions when they got Aiden Hutchinson, it was like an immediate like, okay, we need a guy who we know we can walk to the door and be effective for us. Now it's kind of like you're saying with the Jets, like same thing. Like they got rid of some edge rushers and some D line talent. They need a guy who come in there immediately and contribute for them. Like while they probably did with their timeline, they probably would have had time to develop Arvell Reese. It's still an unknown. Whereas the Jets are most likely, like you said, they're probably going to be trying to get like their franchise quarterback in the draft next year, whoever that may be, Arch Manning, Dante Moore, like whoever it is. And then from there, that's when you want to start like ramping up and winning. So it doesn't help to have a guy who is already like in his second or third year who can contribute right away rather than waiting for them to develop and hoping that they're then contributing for you. So yeah, I don't hate that like draft strategy at all. And then for the tight end part, even the Omar Cooper part here, it is interesting because they brought in Frank Reich as their offensive coordinator, which is interesting. He he the last few spots he's been in, he's had some unceremonious exits with how but some of those have been like as a head coach and then as a play caller or whatever it may be. So we'll see how he does here. I know Stanford's happy he's on the other side of the country right now, but you have to trust him, and like, maybe he can evolve, right? Like you always hope that like this is kind of speaking of Frank Reich, like this is kind of the conversation we had Doug Peterson was with the Jaguars. It's like you can be a good offensive coordinator and a good coach and things like that, but if you're not evolving and always changing what the landscape of that is the NFL, then you get left behind, kind of like Doug Peterson did, kind of like I think Frank Reich did as well. So it'll be interesting to see if Frank Reich has like been paying attention and working to evolve his playbook and his play calling in general with these guys. And what you see a lot now in the NFL is two tight end sets. And a lot of teams loading up on tight ends like this. I mean, even the Raiders did this, right? Remember they got Brock Bowers a year after they drafted what's his name? The year before, Michael Mayer, like the year before. So it's like you're always like it's not too surprising to see this anymore. And if anything, it is still also another guy where it's like you're seeing what you got him in that year one because everything is setting up for you for when you get your franchise quarterback potentially the following year. So I like that. And then for the slot corner spot, that is becoming one of the most important positions in football on defense. I mean, look at the Eagles with Cooper DeJean, Trent McDuffie, who just got traded for a first-round pick to the Rams, like players like that. Like the slot corner is becoming more and more of an important position for this team.
Yeah. All right, next team that I had as winners here, it was the Browns. I know, like it's crazy, like both the Browns and Jets having good drafts. But I think this was, to me, this was a really good draft class. You went Spencer Fano, Casey Concepcion, Denzel Boston, and Emmanuel McNeil-Warren are the four that I want to talk about. Casey Concepcion, to start, one of my favorite receivers to watch film on because he has a silky smooth release that is like filthy. With that being said, the biggest concern is the drops, but they're more like mental like lapses where it's like he's thinking about where he's going next, and he's dropping the ball in the process of that because he is so elusive after the catch where it's like, all right, he just needs to focus a little bit more and secure the ball, and then think about the next move and what that looks like because that was something I literally like had to play specifically against South Carolina, where it's like filthy release, he gets open literally in the end zone. And he just dropped it, and I was like, that was like solely was like a mental lapse of like, all right, like great release, great route, and then just drop the ball. But it's those are teachable things for me. Okay, but yeah, I like Casey Concepcion is one of my favorite receivers because the drops are an issue. With that being said, his versatility. And his release off the line of scrimmage to me is like you can use him in so many different ways. Even as a punt returner, he has punt return touchdown. He has usage there, and I think the Browns just continue to need guys that can be like weapons, and especially after the catch. That's something that I think would be beneficial for whoever that starting quarterback is in that quarterback room. I really like Casey Concepcion. All that to say, fighting through mic issues here. But I think a big question for me is like, all right, like you go Casey Concepcion, what's the next move? And then they went and got another receiver in Denzel Boston, who's the exact opposite of Casey Concepcion. You have somebody who, Casey Concepcion is going to be your slot guy. You can move him around the field. You can do different versatile options. Denzel Boston is throw the ball up in the air and let him do the rest. Go up and get it because he's 6'4", he's physical, big, strong hands. The biggest thing, like, it's funny because he literally is the exact opposite, where it's like you're not going to get a fast, run after the catch type of receiver. He's going to be someone that's hard to bring down, which is where he's going to get a lot of those yards after the catch, solely because of how big he is. But that physical nature of somebody who can go up and win you balls, and I don't think it's hard for me to remember the last time like Cleveland has had somebody that can be a big, strong, physical receiver for them. So I really like that from a Denzel Boston standpoint. Their first pick, and I skipped over it in particular to circle back, is to say Spencer Fano. And offensive line was a weird position group to kind of rank this year, solely because Will Campbell has ruined like offensive guard or offensive line prospects because of his short arms. And we saw last year, like, that was all the talk of like, oh, his short arms, what's it going to look like when it gets to the NFL level? And then we saw him struggle in the playoffs, and I think that has turned a lot of teams off from that, because you have a lot of these prospects with shorter arms, like Spencer Fano, for example, who gets those Will Campbell, comparisons, and it's like, all right, will he be able to overcome that? And I think, like, to me, we said it wasn't an issue last year. We've seen that it can be more of an issue this year, which is why I think teams as well are looking at a player like Spencer Fano and saying, like, all right, what are we going to get from you, and how tough can you truly be? But he plays physical, he plays strong, but if he gets a longer edges, like arms on him, we see him struggle, and I think that's going to be interesting to see what that'll look like for the Browns. But you have the versatility to be able to move him inside as a guard if you feel like that's going to be a concern as a tackle. So I think there's so much potential when it comes to that. And then the final one I want to talk about, Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. He was an interesting prospect because he was mocked very early, end of the first round, and at the latest beginning of the second round, and he fell a lot farther than that. And it's funny because I a lot of the talk leading up to this was like, oh, the Eagles should take him. They have a clear need in safety, and I'm against that. And I'll say why is that I don't think he's a scheme fit for what the Eagles were looking for, and I think it's a reason why they passed on him. Also, because we'll get to them later, they went in a different direction. He is going to be a much more to me, he's a Brian Flores guy, for example, where you can have him down close to the line of scrimmage, you can have him fly across the field and be effective. And I think the Eagles need more of a ball hawk, sit back and analyze the field type of safety. I really would have liked a Dylan Thieneman for them, or AJ Halsey for them, who, those are all players that EJ Warner had mentioned, or not EJ Warner, EJ Smith, when I talked with him.
Temple on the brain,
EJ
bro.
Warner, what a throwback. So it's just funny because he had talked about Sidney Brown not working in the Eagles defensive scheme because he doesn't fit what Vic Fangio wants to do. Vic Fangio is a nothing behind you type of guy, and Sidney Brown is a safety that needs to fly around, needs to be effective in that way. So I think, yes, obviously you want to go best available, but I think these scheme fit options is why we saw a player like Emmanuel McNeil-Warren fall a bit farther, because he is going to be that fast and physical player. He literally played in the same system as Quinyon Mitchell, and I think a lot of people are it's easy layup, and I was like, no, just it won't work. I would much rather prefer someone who can be a bit more ball hawky in a sense. But I think on the Browns defense, I think he'll be able to play his role, his style of football, especially from a safety standpoint. I think he'll be really effective there.
Yeah, 100%. I will say though, real quick on the was it Fanu?
Yeah, no, yeah.
I like Yeah, the pick is like you can argue about like whether or not like he should have been taken that early, but I did like the process of the Browns getting to him, which was trading down and getting more assets. Like I and like, this is 2 years in a row they've done that. Like as much as I shit on the Browns organization for how bad they are, and we can get to reasons why that is, mainly like who's their starting quarterback this next year, like who would Fanu be protecting, but yeah, I still like the process of going about it that way, and then getting anytime you can gather more assets and picks and still get a guy that you were probably going to try and get anyways. Like I love that process. I'm always for that Rams. So yeah, I didn't hate that part about it. And then yeah, you just take a couple shots at receiver. Why not, right? If you got them highly rated, just go after them. See what weapons you can give either your young or your shitty quarterback that's about to come in and start for you. And then I sorry, I don't mean to keep like I just clearly yeah, but no, the process of the way the Browns have gone about this, I thought was very good. And then yeah, to take a flyer and a safety like that later on, when you already have that much defensive talent in your room, especially in the DB room, you have like a Delpit there who can help you support a young safety like this. I just think that their process for getting these first four guys in the draft at least was very good.
Yeah, and I think for in terms of the Fano conversation with the shorter arms, I think his athleticism will make up for a lot of the issues he may have in terms of and in terms with that. So I'm curious to see like how he'll look, because like I mentioned, I think Will Campbell has set the market back for short arm tackles to be like, all right, like what is the deal, and how can we move forward with them?
Just I mean, not to sound like an Instagram like commenter, but like what are his feet like? Like how is he moving? Like quickly or like is it
Feet, quick feet,
okay?
quick feet, athletic, and that's what I'm saying. I think he'll. I don't want to say like he'll be better than Will Campbell, but I think a lot of the issues, like I think it, like yes, the short arms, but I think his athleticism and quick feet will make up for a lot of those issues of like if defenders or especially edge defenders get their hands on him first.
Yeah, I mean nobody's a perfect player, but if you have other ways about you that you can make up for your deficiencies, then that's just how it is sometimes. Like Will Campbell can be a little flat-footed sometimes, but like, if you have a guy who can have that ankle flexion and move his feet quick, then you can help make up for your deficiency of like shorter arms or smaller hands.
Yeah,
I still wouldn't like it, but you know. All right,
yeah.
what's your next team?
It's going to be interesting. My next team, I waited enough time. It's the Eagles.
I know
Okay,
it.
I'll start with the obvious. Makai Livin.
Yeah.
Seeing him fall down the. Okay, I can't talk about the Eagles and not talk about one of my bigger losers in this draft class, which is the Rams. So I'll start with them and then I'll circle back to the Eagles. So I think the reason we even got here was because of the Rams. They passed on both Kenny Sadiq and Makai Lemon. And there was a report that came out, I think it was like late last night or like earlier today, that they were like, oh, like they didn't think either one of those players were an immediate fit on their offense that would make an immediate impact. And so they decided to draft a quarterback to wait behind their MVP. They're fresh off an MVP quarterback. And yes, look, obviously the biggest. I don't hate the thought process because yes, you do need a successor to Matthew Stafford. The quicker you get a guy in the quarterback room, quicker who's learning under the McVay scheme, who's learning behind an MVP quarterback in Matthew Stafford, it makes sense from that standpoint. With that being said, Ty Simpson it isn't good enough to justify going this early, and I think that is the biggest issue that I have is that yes, he has a lot of the pro-ready tools and especially the intelligence of being able to read. But I question a lot of the decision making. And yes, like that's something especially that you can work with a quarterback at the next level. It's he doesn't stink, and
He doesn't stink.
I think it's important because we literally had someone like on air be like this pick stinks, like, and I'm like, all right, like he isn't that bad. Like to me, yes, like there are tools that you can work with, which is why I say like you can be patient with him, and it makes sense that if there's any team that's going to take him, it's someone who can be patient and let him develop, and the Rams have that potential, and he can also be an above average, like starter for you if Matthew Stafford does go down. I know there were the lingering back issues from last year. With that being said, for a team that has been all in on like we are committing to winning and maximizing this championship window, the fuck the draft picks we're trading for Trent McDuffie, going out and like making all these acquisitions. There's to me Mekhi Lemon is a player that can easily fit into like a McVay scheme because like his like draft comp, and I really like this, is Puka Nacua because of how like he's so good after the catch and getting across the field and being effective. To me, like I was like I can literally see like you basically have two Pukas running out there. Like that would be insane. And with Devontae Adams getting older as well, like to me like the thing with Mekhi Lemon was like he is going to be most effective, going across the middle because he can be a receiver that like isn't afraid to go across the middle, catch these balls. He great at contested catches and then still be elusive after the catch, and has really good hands. I thought like it would make sense to get him in a Sean McVay scheme and just let him go crazy, and they decided to go Ty Simpson. And once again, I understand the thought process. To me, if you wanted to take a flyer on any quarterback and sit back and let him develop a bit more, I wouldn't suggest you do that with a first round pick. So that's where I'll say with go ahead.
Well, my problem is, and this has always been my problem with quarterbacks that get drafted early like him, and by like him I mean ones with limited play time in college. That's always my biggest thing with a lot of these guys. I mean, because you think about like there was always a thing with like Mitchell Trubisky, and then more recently, actually, there's been a few, but I'll just use Mitchell because he had less than 500 snaps coming out of college, and like he played like what Tyson's played like 15 games in college, I think it was, and he was in college for 4 years, but didn't play till his last year. So stuff like that kind of concerns me. And now I know he was at a college, of course, with Bama, where it's not always easy to get minutes like that, but stuff like that is always sort of I'm not gonna say a full red flag for me, but it's concerning because it's like, why weren't you able to start that long, and then in that limited playing time, what did you actually present for us? Like we were hearing like he may not even make it, like that he wouldn't even be picked in the first round a lot of times, and then the Rams take him like this, and it's like, okay, like I understand you might need a quarterback in the future to replace Matthew Stafford, and you got these picks in recently. You had the Falcons pick and everything like that, and you traded one of them for Trent McDuffie, which you could consider one of your first round picks, which would be a great one, right? It's a proven commodity, one of the best corners in the league. But with Ty Simpson, he also I almost think it hurts him a bit to like sit in a way, and this may just be like my own personal thing, right? But you didn't have that much playing time in college, and then you're going to come into the NFL, and you're going to sit for at least 1 year, right? And then from there, so then you've got 15 games of college and then no experience in the NFL after you sat for a year as well. And I know the mental reps and being around the team and being a professional, all of that really matters in your development. But the on-field reps are going to be missing. I don't think, unless Matthew Stafford gets injured, they're actually going to throw him out there. And they were even saying he's going to compete with Stetson Bennett. Now I'm guessing the Alabama quarterback will win this one, but I hated the process. I really did, especially if you have 2 first-round picks in this draft and you can consider Trent McDuffie and whatever, trade back. Like, I don't understand why you can't trade back or get somebody that can make an impact immediately. This is a team that constantly talks about how they're trying to compete right now. They're trying to be, one of the best teams in the league right now. And getting a guy like this is more GM than coach brain in my mind, right? Because it's the GM saying, I'm looking ahead to the future and thinking I'm covering my ass and make sure we have longevity and a continuous line of steady quarterback play going into the future. Whereas a coach, and I'm guessing, they're going to say what they're going to say, right? The PR is going to be the PR. They're going to be told their talking points, all that stuff. We don't actually know what Sean McVay thinks about this pick. Maybe he is kind of like excited about it, but the body language didn't show that. And as much as they want to talk about it afterwards, I just feel like it didn't even have to be one of the top offensive guys. You could have added more defensive help here as well. There were still so many talented players right there at 13 that you passed on to get a guy who may not even be a viable starter for you 2 years from now. Not this year, but like 2 years from now, basically. So it's tough. And my thing too is there's always a part of me that's like, if you're going to take a quarterback, then take them earlier than maybe consensus is sometimes, because if you believe in the guy, then take him because the position is that important. But is the talent that he presents to you now going to be worth it a few years from now? And especially with you're taking a guy in the first round, so you get that extra year of the rookie contract, but you're also going to be wasting a year or two of his rookie contract when you could have been using that money that you would have saved with a rookie quarterback on other players. But now you're wasting it trying to develop a guy who your coach may not even want there.
Yeah, Sean McVay's body language did not look good when that trade or that pick was submitted. But like, And this is my issue is that like as a quarterback, Ty Simpson is a very like safe player in a sense where it's like if he's going to like he is a if his first read is open, that's where he's going, and if it's not, it seems like all's falling apart because he can get a little too impassive or like impassive, and he's like try like needs to speed up the process. Needs to speed up the process. Read through his marks a lot faster. And then the arm strength. He doesn't have a good arm enough where it's like you can make up for these lot of things. He's not elusive. So like you're getting a pocket passer who needs to develop his processing and the ability to like just understand it and like go through his reads faster. So it's yes, these are teachable things. My thing is as well, like you mentioned, like the timeline. How does this fit into what the Rams are looking for? Is the biggest question, which is why like, and at the same time, like I'll say that like the Rams drafting like Ty Simpson saved a lot of the like later teams in the draft because we were hearing a lot of talks about New York wanting to trade back into the first round to get a Ty Simpson late in the first round. Team like Arizona wanting to trade back in and get him. And the fact that like they were like, oh, like he's off the board, like whew, like, and we saw the Jets go like Cade Klubnik like later in the draft and like day 3. So like, it's just funny that like a decision like this, yes, like it solely does feel like a GM like I need to prepare for the future in some way type of thing. I just like look at this and say like I can't justify doing it right now, and especially at this price.
Yeah, I agree. And look, maybe we'll have egg in our face, and when they're lifting Lombardi at the end of the season, and Ty Simpson's there with the clipboard and the trophy in hand. But we'll see, man. I hated the process of it all.
Yeah, I think like, and I'll use this to transition to the Eagles. Mekhi Lemon being on the board there fit for what they needed, and to see him not go off the board there and go Ty Simpson. Yes, it was a shock because it was Ty Simpson. It was also like, oh shoot, Mekhi Lemon is still here. Like
Yeah.
this is going to open up a lot of things for a lot of different teams. And I remember looking and saying like, all right, like Ravens could go him, but they clearly had a need for interior guard. I really like that they were able to get Olavenga Ione. Like I really like that pick for them, and he'll instantly improve their offensive line that used to have Daniel Falele there. So like I think Ravens fans are happy to not see Falele, and the fact that like you get a high level starter who was like consensus the best guard in the draft. I think that makes a lot of sense. Bucks, you were kind of like, all right. Receiver room's kind of crowded already. You're not going to go another one. Jets up to that point hadn't picked they were going to get Sadiq later. All this, I'll just say, I'm like looking ahead and I'm like, all right, like there's a lot of teams that could use a Mekhi Lemon, and to see him just keep falling, I'm like, oh, like this is insane. Like everyone like was kind of sticking to their other guys, like not expecting Mekhi Lemon to fall, and then. The controversy happens. The Cowboys are on the clock. The Steelers call Mekhi Lemon to be like, we're taking you with the next pick. Howie Roseman
Snuck right in there.
Gets passed, and there's literally a clip of like Mekhi Lemon on the phone with the Steelers, his family celebrating, and he goes like, wait, like why is Philly on the clock? why is Philly on the clock? Howie Roseman is rubbing his hands together, gets the pick. It's funny because his agent, like Mekhi Lemon's agent, is like, oh, like Philly traded up. They're gonna draft you right here. This is them on the phone. Like and like I can only imagine like the Steelers are on the phone still too. Like
They're definitely hearing what's being said.
To me, that is the funniest part of all this is that they're literally hearing this player get taken like literally from under their nose.
They must have had like that sinking feeling like in your chest, and then like maybe I don't know if it was panic because you always have like multiple guys, but I'm sure there was a slight like, oh shit, like now who are we taking?
Yeah, and
because they were probably already moving on to the next pick.
Yeah, like it's insane. But I like Howie Roseman did his job, and this is like I think in a draft like this where it's considered worse, like guys like or teams that clearly have their guys, like especially like naturally they're scouting for months and months on end. They have their guys. They know who they want to target. They're looking ahead and saying, like, all right, this is the direction we're going to go in. And And if it falls, like you're like, hey, like we'll take it. And like credit to Howie Roseman for being advantageous, especially because we've heard a lot of the AJ Brown noise. Everyone has heard this naturally, and when you see a receiver like Makai Lemon fall down the board, you're like, all right, cool. We will get that, and we will take advantage of the other teams, letting him fall. With Makai Lemon, like the biggest comp I've seen, and like I keep saying comp, but like I think that's the easiest way to relate this is like an Amon Ra, and I think that like to me that makes a lot of sense. Literally like the same measurables, the same size, and I think you're getting someone who can be like that tough physical runner over the middle, a creative route runner. I mentioned the strong hands. He's very good in contested catches. This was the best receiver. Literally, he won the best receiver award in college football all last year. So to instantly add someone like that to an Eagles offense that's clearly getting revamped, and they later added Eli Stowers, who I really like as another pass catching option. You're not going to get a strong blocking tight end from him, which I know is like you hate that, not having a strong blocking tight end. But
I hate having not a strong blocking tight end when you don't have another tight end on the roster who can then block for you. That's where I have my issues. Dallas Goedert.
It's going to be really interesting, but this clearly is like a Goddard successor. With him signing on for one more year, I think like if Stowers is even like half as good as what we saw at Vanderbilt, like Goddard's out of here. I think Goddard's out of here regardless. You draft a guy in the second round, you're like you gotta
he's on a 1-year deal anyways.
Yeah, exactly. And especially if they can use Stowers in the same way that we saw, especially like Goddard used in the red zone, I think you'll get a lot of value from him. The biggest question, and they also added Mark Hebel, who massive human being, just straight up massive. My question with him is like, how well you be able to develop him without a Jeff Stoutland in the building? And it's something that I asked like EJ Smith. I keep referring back to this. I was like, how confident are you like in just being around? He's like, that's a good question. I don't have answers for you. Like I genuinely don't know. And I think that to me is going to be a concern. But I like you have an Eagles offensive line staff who've been there before. They've been around Stoutland. Obviously, you're not getting a Stoutland clone. But I think to some degree, like they'll know how to work with a guy like this, who's literally a massive human being, has all the strength tools. You just need to like speed up the feet, speed up the processing, speed up that, because like the physical tools you're working with is he's talented and it's just developing all that. They were able to add a safety later in the draft, as well as adding a quarterback. Who like I've seen a lot of like you can use him in a lot of Taysom Hill scheming options, and I agree with that. And I think especially if the Eagles
do you think he'll be the new tush push guy?
I wouldn't be mad with it, especially
because I don't think Jalen Hurts. I think he's even said before I don't think he likes doing it.
To me I like that, and I think like it's my favorite thing was when the Eagles got creative with the variations of the tush push, and I don't think they do it enough.
I agree.
Like they do the handoffs to Saquon, or like there's so many different options, especially when you have like everyone getting ready to dive. Like you can do so many different creative things, and I think yes, like to some degree, like the keeping it simple is the best option. Where it's like, all right, hard count, we'll go because that gets people more than like the actual tush push itself. But to me, I think using Cole Payton and using him like as a Taysom Hill option, especially on the tush push plays, to be able to use them as a versatile option to not just pass the ball but to hand it off and get creative with it. I'll use all this to say like the biggest thing that's kind of annoyed me about this is like, all right, like Eagles had a great draft class. And people find a way to be like, Jalen Hurts is the biggest dictator of if this will work out. And the biggest concerns I've seen is like, well, Jalen Hurts doesn't throw over the middle. Makai Lemon likes to play over the middle. And I'm like, did we watch the Eagles offense last year and see like the plays that they ran? Like nobody like and like it's a cycle, because like you could say like there weren't any plays drawn over the middle, and people will say, well, because Jalen Hurts can't throw over the middle, his coordinator was trying to like scheme around his weaknesses. And to me, it's bullshit. And we've said this before, where it's like Jalen Hurts is like his biggest knock to me, and you said this as well, is like was him against the blitz. Like that was like the issues where we saw him struggle with, and being able to pick that up and read that. But I don't think like we're going to see him struggle in a new system when he's constantly in new systems every year, and he's adjusting to this, new players, new everything. Like to me, I think Jalen Hurts is a versatile option that can line up any type of way you want him to and do exactly what you need him to do. And it's just a matter of saying, hey, this is what we're going to do. And to me, it's like a simple, all right, cool. That's what we're running. I'm all for it. And I think seeing that actually play out is going to be satisfying for me.
Yeah, some people go, it's a prove it year for Jalen Hurts. I'm like, well, what else do you have to prove at this point? I don't know, but you and I are big, like we're pretty confident in Jalen Hurts, so we're not going to have those conversations of like, oh, he's got to do this or that. It was the team. It was more the offensive staff that let everyone down than Jalen Hurts did. I'm not going to sit here and say Jalen Hurts had like an all-star kind of season, but the hindrances were coming from the play calling and everything else, like and some of the injuries that were going on. And
you even had Jeff Stoutland on a podcast with he was on New Heights talking about this, and he was like literally saying like the play calling was a big issue last year, and the fact that like people around the organization, people around like the Eagles are saying like it was clearly an offensive coordinator and a play calling standpoint, and then fans would get online and be like, "Well, it's Jalen Hurts' fault. They're trying to scheme around his weaknesses." It, to me, is insane.
Yeah, it's interesting what we excuse for quarterbacks like Justin Herbert, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow, but not for guys like Jalen Hurts. And we can leave it at that.
Yeah.
All right. So,
I'm gonna pick up the pace a little bit. Giants and Chiefs were my next.
Oh, you can take your time, by the way. Like I'm not in a rush to watch the Sixers game.
Fair enough. I was like, I looked out. Oh, this is.
No, as much as I love watching Joel Embiid hoop, I'm always apprehensive.
Yeah. Okay. One, I have the Giants here because of the Sexy Dexy trade. They were able to trade Dexter Lawrence straight up for the 10th pick, which I was like, for the Bengals, I was like, interesting. Like, yes, I think when you were looking at some of the like what could have been there at 10 for you, I think Ruben Bain like would have been there for them, and he can be an immediate edge impact player for you. But I do understand like.
Dexter Lawrence is Dexter Lawrence.
Yes, that's the thing is that you're getting a proven commodity. You're getting someone who can make an immediate impact on a defense that really struggled.
Especially in the middle. I think D tackles are becoming more and more important in the league.
Sorry, I just look at this and say like, is it too much? And that's my biggest question. But it's what both teams need. The Giants are clearly going away. He requested a trade, and it's like, all right, cool. We're going to send you to a competing team that needs a position like you. And in return, we're getting more draft picks to solidify what we a younger team that we're trying to build up. So for them to get and leading up, I was a bit worried. Not worried. Worried a bit for the Giants' sake, and I shouldn't be as an Eagles fan, but Jordan Tyson to me was the most polarizing prospect. Like as a receiver, because teams viewed him in so many different ways, and the biggest thing is injury history. Like that was the decider of this, where it's like he has a very, very shaky injury history, where you're looking and saying like, all right, like I'm worried, and especially on a MetLife turf, like most of these games, it's a bit scary.
Would you rather be receiver in MetLife turf, or why they still call it Candlestick Park in San Francisco, whatever it is? Levi's.
Anywhere, yeah, Levi Stadium. Anywhere but New York. If me like having to play in MetLife every time, like I think like, all right, the Eagles have to play there at least once a year. It is my most feared game. Like the Washington Stadium as well, just because of the
stands falling. Yeah,
trying to take out Jalen Hurts too. That was.
No, I went to that stadium a few times, the Commanders one, and one time I sneezed and like 3 people fell down on the stands. It was crazy. And then they have the wire. Dude, we're not gonna. I don't. Yeah, go ahead.
But so a lot of the draft talk leading up to this was like, especially the week of, it was like Joe Schoen is in love with Jordan Tyson. He took him out to a private dinner. Like they were like, if he's available at 10, like they're going to get him. They were even talking about as high as 5, like for him there. And I was like, that's a bit rich, especially because I do think Carnell Tate was still the best receiver. And I was surprised to see him go off the board at 4. I think that was the first real surprise of the draft, where it's like they, and it makes sense when you think about it and say like Cam Ward, like you need a weapon, an instant weapon, and someone who can make an immediate impact. So yes, like the Giants, I look at this and say like, I really like what they were able to do adding Arbor Reese. What is the fit going to be? That's like my question, where it's like, yes, best player available in the draft, like up to your pick. And it's funny because on the like when this happened live, Malik Neighbors was on a live with Micah Parsons, and he was disappointed that they didn't go Caleb Downs. And to be honest, I'm kind of right there with him because I think we've seen players like Caleb Downs who like is a versatile safety. You can line him up anywhere around the field and make an impact, like a Kyle Hamilton. We talked about like the meta of the NFL before. Having a player like that can do everything for your defense and be that captain is so important. And it was funny because I was talking with some of the guys leading up, and they're like, oh, like, but like safeties don't tend to go that high. Like we saw Kyle Hamilton fall to like 14, and I was like, Kyle Hamilton is the reason why Caleb Downs is going to go a lot higher because you see how instrumental a player like that is going to be, and teams are going to start to take advantage and say like best safety available who can do everything and be versatile. We need to put pressure and go up and get him. And the Cowboys going up and getting, and I'll save that like later. I was just like, oh,
Yeah.
but I do understand, especially when you consider the Giants' needs. Like I would have preferred a Caleb Downs. With that being said, you're getting others who you can whether it's you're saying all right, we'll take the chance on him and line him up at edge, or we're saying hey like we'll put him at
I
outside
feel like he's
linebacker.
going to be off ball more
Yes,
at first.
and that is a bit to me. It's tough because his coverage skills to me are still shaky, which is why I think Ohio State started to use him more as an edge. So I'm
Well, they sorry to interrupt you, but like as much as I'm not the biggest fan of Harbaugh, I am a fan of the defensive coordinator they brought in because and this is like we were talking about like metas in the NFL now. Like, yes, Arvil Reese, like you can like try to figure out like okay, what position should he play first? But I think I'm saying off ball, but I'm saying that in more of a. I think they'll present different packages and looks for you on defense, sort of like how the Eagles do at times, where it's like like you might have a 4-man front, but it's not the 4 men that are going to be coming at you every single time. So when you can present different packages with a guy like that, where you're like kind of like Zach Bond, right, where it's like you can line them up in different spots and you can change the picture for the quarterback at the start of it, but then that brings you other formations to mess around with as well. So he can be a versatile piece for you that can be a disruptor in multiple ways.
Yeah, and I think especially when you consider how he was used at Ohio State, like it was insane the versatility that they've been able to like use with him and put him at different positions. I think you're getting someone who you can say every play he's going to be somewhere else on the field. And to me that speaks volumes of a player like Arvil, who I once again thought he should have went too. So looking at this, I say like I really like them, like even if you're still questioning what the fit is, you took the best available and said, all right, cool. And then you followed up with Maui Noah, who, like tackle wise, I think was like projected to be the best tackle in this class. And I thought like especially for me like leading up to draft, I was like I think the Cardinals are looking at Maui Noah, but getting him at 3 in a weaker draft class, like it doesn't look good. I thought they'd be a team that was trying to trade back, like say, hey, when we're back, get some more assets, and then we'll get Maui Noah a bit later, and say like, all right, like we were able to trade back, we were able to still get our guy. So for them to go like Jeremiah Love, I was like, oh, like they're like okay, like I see how this is going to shake out now. But I do like Maui Noah, and I think you're getting someone who, like, wherever the fit is, if you decide to move him inside, because once again, the smaller concerns of being a smaller offensive tackle, you can move him inside. But at the same time, like you can do a bunch of different options with him, and especially when a Giants offensive line that is improving and heading in a positive direction, I think that Maui Noah is going to be a good piece for them. So I really like the Giants draft class. I think they did a good job of naturally filling out the needs that they. And also Colton Hood as well. He was one of my it was a weird DB for me to grade just solely because he's kind of a make or break guy in the sense that I'm not a big fan of handsy DBs, and he is a very handsy and physical DB that especially at the next level, these tickle tack penalties will be an issue, but. It's solely a matter of he just needs to trust his instincts because he's a very good and solid outside DB who has good instincts, but sometimes relies too much on the physical aspects of I'm going to play physical, especially off the line of scrimmage. And if he goes up against literally a guy like I mentioned earlier with Casey Concepcion who has a good release off the line of scrimmage, that's where I look at him and say I think he'll be cooked. But either way, the upside and you can get him to to work with that. And then the final one I mentioned, Malachi Fields. The same way I
Mm.
mentioned Denzel Boston as a go up and get it type of guy. Malachi Fields is a big, strong, physical receiver who can be, especially in the red zone for you, a good threat for Jackson Dart.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately I kind of like what the Giants are doing. I don't know why. I still wish they could have found a way to keep Dexter Lawrence because he was such a crucial part of their defense. I know the numbers weren't as shiny as they've been in previous years, but like he still is like a very effective and top three D tackle in the league, and just don't really find guys like that. So, I mean, it's going to be a lot of work for. They have multiple D linemen though who can line up in multiple spots. Like I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Abdul Carter line up at times, like on the inside. But I just they're this finally is looking like they're drafting and building the way that it can be more stable than in the past where it was just kind of taking flyers and trying to get the old line together, which took them several years, and we don't even know if they're still fully there. But I mean, even like they don't have to start the rookie right away, right? Like because I think they got Luminor in there, so it's like they're the process, the way they're going about this draft, the way they're building this team now with Harbaugh, it feels a lot better now, and maybe that's just because Joe Shane isn't the one fully in the reins now anymore, and we've had our discussions about him and how he drafts and builds his team in the past. So this may just be mainly like the Harbaugh influence, but I mean, hey, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. The final team I had as winners was the Chiefs. I mentioned them. The one thing I'll question is the like a lot of the reporting after made me feel better about trading up for Monsieur Delane because I think to me he was the best DB in. But a lot of people were like, oh, like why'd you trade up like 3 picks to get your guy? He was still going to be there. And to me, like with the reporting came out and they were like, oh, the Commanders were right there looking at that. Like I was like, oh, like it makes sense. And I think at times where it's like you mentioned it, like in the draft class that you think is weaker, if there's a guy that you like, go out and get him. Go be
Yeah.
aggressive and get him. And I credit the Chiefs for doing that. So for a lot of people to be like, oh well, like why would they trade? Like you if you like your guy and you're sold on him, why not be aggressive? And especially the Chiefs, a team that can play aggressive with how they're building their roster. So I really like them being aggressive, getting Monsieur Delane, who to me was the best corner in this draft, as someone who like once again has the best instincts, isn't super handsy. He's like the exact DB I like because you can line him up and he can be a like especially like the best thing I saw from him on film naturally was the instincts, but his reaction time. Like the ability to be able to like react fast and then break on the ball immediately to me was something that every time I saw I was like I really like him for that reason. They also added Peter Woods, who I think could be a good successor as a defensive tackle to Chris Jones, especially like just wanting to beef up that middle of your defensive line and see what that looks like. And then you address the edge, adding R. Mason Thomas, who can be a good effective edge piece for you as you're trying to just once again improve a defense that has been solid for you at times, but you're getting inconsistent results, especially as they're getting older now. You're starting to phase out some of these older players. To me, though, the one thing I'll add is like a really sneaky get that I really like was Emmett Johnson in the 5th round. I watched a lot of running back film. I watched a lot of Emmett Johnson film. This man, I swear, did not miss holes very often. He has insane vision where it's and especially as a smaller running back, I didn't see him miss a lot of holes where it's like he's constantly reading, reacting, hitting the right holes. He doesn't have breakaway speed, but to me, I really like that as an option of all right, you lost Pacheco, you have somebody who can come in and be a good, especially short yardage situation for you, and find holes, find spacing, and get you so many times they want a running back that has the breakaway speed or can be super dynamic. To me, I really like someone who can just get you a good couple yards, and that's sometimes all you need, especially in a Chiefs offense that's changing, and we're going to see what that looks like this upcoming season. So I really like the Chiefs changes.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just stick with the run. Well, first I'll say getting your Trent McDuffie replacement like that is smart. I love that. He's a great DB, and you just hope that he can be as productive as McDuffie was for you. And then the running back part, you added Kenneth Walker in free agency, and then now you bring in this young guy who, like you said, the Chiefs offense may be changing. I don't know how much it'll be changing, but I think it's more of just they want to continue to evolve and have an aspect of their team that they didn't have before, that they tried to have with guys like Pacheco and whoever else they were trying to throw out there. But I love it because it's kind of like you're right. as bad as they were at generating explosive runs in that offense, I'm not sitting here thinking like, okay, now they're going to have like, 50, 20 plus yard runs now through their offense. They just need guys who can move the chains and not be, stacked up behind the line of scrimmage, who can find the, like you said, like he has good vision. Okay, good. You can rely on him there, but then the short yardage stuff as well. I mean, the best thing you can get out of running backs a lot of times is the contact balance and the ability to keep moving forward and get those extra couple yards. And in an offense with Patrick Mahomes, like I said, like you don't need all the explosive runs, but as long as you have the threat of it and a guy who can, push the pile a little bit, that just opens up so much more for your superstar quarterback.
Yeah, I'm just fully sold on like them being aggressive, and it was very much consensus that Monster Delane was the best DB in this class, and I think the one thing I'll note is like the issue is like he's still like he's not super big, but his instincts and his ability to like be aggressive and just read and react really fast. I think to me, with quick feet, smooth hips, like to me those things like they stand out to me as like I think that's what will make him succeed and be able to plug and play at the next level.
I like it. All right, what's next?
Those are all my winners. I'm gonna swap over to the like TBD side, and I'll start with the Cowboys. Caleb Downs, an insane pick for me. I was like, there's no way he should have still been there. And the league to me messed up like letting the Cowboys get him because he's exactly what the Cowboys needed in a revitalization.
Exactly what they needed.
And like I was just like that. Like they literally have the like an all-pro potential safety right there that they can instantly plug in and play, and he can make an immediate impact on your defense. My one question would just be like if he gets in coverage against a shiftier, especially slot receivers, like I'm questioning what that'll look like. But his intelligence and IQ at the next at the college level was just insane. Like the man is everywhere. And then they also got Malachi Lawrence later in the pick 23. I don't like it solely because I think there were much better edge options on the board. Like Malachi Lawrence, I think was like a solid like pricked everywhere day 2 type of guy and that you could get in round 2. And look, we talked about like with the Chiefs, like going and getting your guy. I don't think like teams were that high on him where it's like you need to go out and get him and make sure you're being aggressive with getting a player like Malachi Lawrence later in the first round. So to me, like obviously, yes, it feels like a need of like wanting to improve that edge and the pressure that Jerry Jones seems to be so balled in with the acquisitions like of Quinnen Williams and trying to build that defensive line. I still think it's a reach in that sense. So that to me, like I was like great pick with Caleb Downs, like, and then I was like Malachi Lawrence, like really, so to me it's like like I like what they did with Caleb Downs. I think that was to me like one of the best picks in the entire draft and being aggressive and getting him. After that, I was like, all right, Malachi Lawrence kind of knocks it down a bit. I did like that they added Jayshawn Barton as well for edge for Michigan, who I think could be a nice addition as well. But then you draft Drew Shelton, a tackle who's just simply going to need a lot of work. You need a lot of developmental skill with him. So to me, it was like, all right, like this is really great. I really like this. I don't really like this, and I think you're being too aggressive and like saying, all right, yes, we need to go get our guy. I still don't like it and like that idea. And then Devin Moore as well, like they got him in the 4th round, a DB that I really liked coming out of Florida, and somebody who has all the tools and just needs to develop a bit more. So they have a lot of potential. But I think for me, an issue that I also have with the Cowboys is that, and Jermod McCoy, like he is such a weird prospect to gauge a sense of, and naturally all prospects that like, especially DBs who come off season-ending injuries and you aren't seeing a full season of it's interesting, and a lot of the pre-reporting before the draft was that like not only did he miss the entire season, but he might miss this entire season because yes, he recovered from the ACL injury, but like apparently there's some like another issue that he's going to need another surgery and could miss another season, which I think that's why we saw him fall to the 4th round. But the tape that you saw from this man, like when he was healthy, and he's going against Jeremiah Smith, who teams are going to be selling out for next year, and you see him be effective, and I don't say like completely take him out because you can't completely take him out of a game, but like be effective against somebody who's a generational wide receiver. Like that to me, like is why like he was projected to be as high as like the Cowboys at like 23 was a pick for them of like, oh yeah, like Jermod McCoy is a guy for them. And the fact that he kept falling and falling, like I think the Cowboys are a team, and look, it's funny that like they literally, I think they might have just been burned last year with Trevon Rebel, and say like he was a guy that we liked from ECU, same situation as Jermod McCoy, except Jermod McCoy was playing at a much better conference. The American is isn't very good for like Trevon Rebel's coming out of ECU, so to me, it's like yes, like Trevon Rebel was great when you saw him play. The injury concerns were the biggest part. And then we saw him come back later in the season, and we saw him get burned. We saw him struggle out there. Maybe it is just an adjustment period, and he'll come back.
He was one of my favorite corners coming out. I still am holding out hope for him in year 2.
I am too, but I think like it really is just like we got burned, and I don't think we want to let it happen again. He ended up on the Raiders, and I think a team that like it's tough because I don't think the Raiders are a team that can afford to let him like sit and like recover. Like they need kind of immediate, like plug and play guys.
I kind of disagree with you on that. I think it was a perfect team for him to go to because there's no expectation for the Raiders this year.
That's okay. That's where I'll say no expectation, but in the sense of like I agree, and I'm trying to find reasons to say otherwise. But when you consider the fact that like the way the Raiders are kind of heading in the right direction, I think like you could do it, but to me it's just I think there are other teams that could have just he could have been more beneficial on. I think the Raiders are like sort of middle of the pack where it's like I completely see why I like it. I just would have liked other teams to be more aggressive. So it's not even like the Raiders' fault. It's more so like the other team's fault of being like you could have like I think you could have taken him and waited. But yeah, so like for me it's just the Cowboys. I look at that and say like. It was a pick that I really loved. I'm not so sure about this next one, and then I really like this, and then it just followed that same pattern for me.
Yeah, I mean, for this mainly, I'll just stick with Caleb Downs because he was one of my favorite players to watch since he was a freshman with Alabama, and you had Nick Saban just gushing about this guy. I mean, it's not often you see a guy that age starting for Nick Saban as a freshman. Like that alone should have told you what kind of player he was going to be. And then when he went to Ohio State, all of us were going like, oh shit. Because I mean, just look at how all of them got picked in this draft. It was an extremely talented team. So, yeah, there might be concerns with him on like shiftier guys, but I also think he is best when he can keep his eyes downfield and towards the quarterback. So, I think he'll be perfectly fine. And he I hate that he's not in our division, but I think he'll be a fantastic player. So, like, yeah, and then the edge help, I do, yeah. I almost feel like that was like a need draft pick for them. Because while they're solid at D tackle now with the trades they've made and some of the other signings, I do think they needed more immediate help on off the edge, rather than just Izaraku just trying to help them out there. But I mean, who knows? I actually, to the Cowboys' credit, they are genuinely like one of the better drafting teams in the league. Like as much shit as we give Jerry Jones and the Cowboys organization for how they handle their business a lot of the times, they are genuinely like decent drafters. If you could even say they're good, it's hard for me to say they're good because I'm an Eagles fan, but like they are genuinely good at the draft. It's just what they do with their players after they're drafted and in free agency when contracts come out that we give them a lot of crap for.
Yeah, for
but
me,
all right, who you got next for your? We still on the?
Yes, next team I kind of had in the it was the Bucks, and I say this because all right.
So you don't like?
No, okay.
Like
I love Ruben Bain. The fact that he fell to them, I'm terrified. Because the way that man walked to the podium of like I got the call, genuinely kind of scary. Like they do, everyone's like stop, and I keep seeing the edits of it, which is funny, but everyone's like stopping, fixing the hat. And he just looked pissed. Grabbed his hat, walked to the stage, fixed it. Like, I was like, oh yeah, we're kind of cooked. This is
yeah, this might be bad.
This is gonna be really scary. It's funny because like naturally there's a lot of reasons he fell. There's a lot of off the field stuff, which is the biggest I think knock for why teams were hesitant. And to be fair, like it isn't just like small stuff where you can kind of ignore it. It very much is in a sense of like a Jalen Carter like falling like to how he did with the Eagles. And then second, his historically really short arms were like the other knock, where it's like there's an exact stat that I know we had like ready to go, but it's like his arms were like just very very short, like historically short to where it's like here it is. Since 2003, no player that has had a 31-inch arm length or shorter has made the Pro Bowl or had double-digit sacks. And so you're like, all right, like, what are you? I won't say it's a risk because, like, if you get him in a good culture program where you can keep him out of trouble, and you can, like, just say, like, all right, like, it's like you fresh start, you get him in a nice culture system, and say, like, go be aggressive and violent. That's exactly what he can be. Like, he to me is like, he was consensus top 5 until like we started to hear all the off the field stuff. He's starting to drop a lot more. But he plays violent with speed, power, and a good combination of both. Where it's like you're getting a lot of versatility from him as an edge rusher, with all the pressure, and he's still efficient in the run defense as well. So to me, he's going to be really scary for the Bucs. The one like what kind of knocked me back down for them was getting Josiah Trotter, and I watched a lot of linebacker film. Josiah Trotter is an amazing run defender. This man stinks in pass coverage, where it's like it is really, really bad. And like every play I watch, I'm like, that was great run defense. Like, he came down hard, it was physical. And then I'm watching him in pass coverage, and he just struggles, and it is just like really bad, like the worst pass coverage of anybody of any of the linebackers I watched. His PFF pass coverage rating was the lowest.
And was he like in the right areas and just couldn't get there in time, or like what was it?
Sometimes he's not even completely like making the right like in the right places, and then when he is in the right places, he's just not capitalizing on opportunities. So it was legitimately a combination of both, where I'm watching it and I'm like, just not good. And he was someone that like fell down my linebacker rankings a lot. And I still do like what you're getting from him, like especially like if you can put him in the roles that he's going to be successful at, and have somebody still be the ball hawk type of linebacker and be the field general. I think that really works for him, but it really is going to be like a scheme fit question.
Yeah.
And then they were able to get Ted Hurst. I liked him to some degree. Drops were a big issue for him. I think he had like an 8% drop rate, where I was like, Jesus, like I was like, it wasn't, good enough for me, where I was like, and yes, they're a team that at the same time, like you don't need immediate help with a receiver. You don't need somebody to come in and make an immediate impact. You have obviously you lost Mike Evans, but you have Chris Godwin, you have Emeka Egbuka, and now you add Hurst to this. I think it could work. I don't like that they're like, I don't even like the pick of going receiver in that direction. And then especially this like in the 3rd round, and then a receiver like Hurst, when I think there were still better options on the board, is what kind of upsets me as well. But I do really like that they added Keontae Scott as someone who can be every time I watched him, I was like seeing him in different positions on the field, whether it's a DB role. He's a bit smaller, so they like will have him like as a safety to come down and play more nickel. So I really like with the versatility with you're going to get a player like Keontae Scott. But it was just to me inconsistent once again. Like, and it's a lot of the reasons why. Like, I think Ruben Bain is going to be phenomenal for them. I think Josiah Trotter will work in the right scheme. Ted Hurst, you need to clean up the drop issues, but they're all things where it's like things need to go right for them. And especially when you consider the arm length thing, to me he makes up for it just with like the physical power and the strength and speed that you're going to see from him. It still is a concern.
Can I ask you something with these receivers? Because there's been a couple now you've mentioned that have drops. Is it like you're looking ahead before you catch it thing, or are they like gator arms? Like what are you like? They're just kind of letting the ball come to their body.
With a receiver like Casey Concepcion, I think it is like mental errors where it's like you're looking ahead and trying to figure out what's next, especially as a speedier, smaller, shifty receiver. You don't want to get hit, and especially like
so it's like a Brian Thomas kind of thing with him.
Yes.
Okay.
But with like a player like Hurst, he's a bigger body receiver where he should be reeling these in. He should be being physical. He should be going up to the catch point, and I think as well separation, I think is going to be the question because you need to separate. And I think at times like he's not fully tracking the ball well enough where it's like the DBs are catching up to him and getting a sense of it, and then it's a contested catch.
Got you. Okay. All right. Makes sense. Yeah. The arm length thing, listen, man, I talked about it last year I'll talk about any position, but like those measurables matter. Like there is legitimate data behind a lot of that. Like we talked about the Will Campbell. It's like the numbers show like it's very rare for someone like this to have like a long successful career if they have these measurements, and that's something scouts look at. I mean, even when I was learning this stuff, that was one of the first things they gave us as a reference sheet of like, hey, when you're looking at it and you're making these reports, like make sure you're listening to stuff because that is something that everyone wants to look at. You can say like there's ways to scheme around it, and then maybe that's like the type of player can overcome it, but the numbers are the numbers, and I don't want to always go full analytics, but like stuff like that does genuinely scare me, especially when you see them go up against competition in the NFL where everyone is bigger, stronger, faster, longer. You know what I'm saying? So it's good luck to him. He's extremely talented, and I hope he does have success. But the numbers are against him, and I think with him falling and hearing all the stuff about him, I think that's great motivation for him to prove everyone wrong.
Yeah, he legit he's going to be a monster. Like I think he's like will like defeat the short arm length thing.
I hope so.
It's just really hard to look by, and I understand why teams pass on that, and you consider the off the field stuff too. Like the character concerns is, and it's funny because like there's always the talk of like why is this coming up now, like the week before the draft, and there's always like this situation happened back then, and it's like really like now it's coming up now. I want to see the data of like, when we're very far removed and these GMs and owners are done, like, was it then that like decided to leak this and just like be like,
a lot of times I'm with you there. I'm like, they're definitely trying to like, muddy the waters a bit so that they can have a better shot.
Yeah. Cause I'm like, this is coming out the week before the draft. Like, and his stock is dropping to like, everyone else had him going like, he was top 10 and then like, he was top 5 and then top 10 and then like you're like now top 15 maybe, and it's like really like a player like that to fall to 15 is crazy. But the next team I had is like I need to see more. It's the Seahawks. I really loved them adding Jadarian Price, and especially late in the round, like literally the last pick of the first round. I think he's exactly what they need as like a replacement for Kenneth Walker, especially when you have Zach Charbonnet, who's going to be coming back from that season-ending injury. You're getting someone who is a physical back for you, who can still have the speed. And it was someone that when I watched, I saw that like he also like it's weird because he was clearly the backup to Jeremiah Love, which it's naturally you're wondering what that'll look like. Where like especially I'm assuming for the first half of the season he'll be like the primary, like he's going to receive most of the carries with Zach Charbonnet still coming back. But he to me is someone that like for his size and like for him being a physical back, he still does have a lot of speed and he reads the field really well. I think that the pass catching and the ball security are two things that you're like, all right, we need to develop and make sure that these things are kind of cleaned up a little bit more. But to me, like I think you're still getting someone just based off of raw tools and the athleticism and what he was able to do, even behind Jeremiah Love and put up the numbers that he was. It was good to me. Like I really like what I saw. But at the same time, he doesn't have a single start because he was behind Jeremiah Love his entire career.
Dude, the Seahawks were making me laugh as I kept like paying attention to the draft because I was like, they lost all these defensive guys. I wonder how they're going to react in this draft. And then it was like defense. It was like, was it everyone but two or three guys, right? Because I think they got a receiver too.
Yeah,
but like everything else was defense.
Yeah. So they went Jadarian Price round 1, and then it was safety round 2, DB round 3. Guard round 5, receiver round 6, and then in round 7 they got 2 DBs and a defensive tackle.
They got one of my favorite safeties in the draft in Bud Clark. Dude, I wanted him so bad on the Eagles.
I really wanted AJ Halsey. I really liked him, especially, and it's like they called him AJ Ballhawk Halsey, and I was like, I think he's exactly what they would have needed. But like I really like Jadarian Price. I just think when you consider all of and it's tough because going round 1 on a running back is always a risk. Going round 1 on a running back that wasn't the primary option on the offense is also a concern there as well. So it was like, all right, there's two kind of concerns there, and especially with the third concern is that you have so many holes to fill in a defense that you just like that just had a bunch of key losses. But at the same time, one of those key losses was a running back as well. That was the key part of making Sam Darnold comfortable. I'm not saying go out there and
Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, and go out there and be everything for us. So I think to me, I like that fit. at the same time, and it made me feel better that they were able to fill the holes of like a Bud Clark or Julian Neal, and start to address things. I just don't think they addressed enough of the defense like in the earlier rounds. Like, and I know like they literally went 2 and 3 with the 2 defense positions, but I think that round 1 pick to me, like, and yes, I know Jadarian Price. He's not gonna. I don't think he would have made it past the second half of the first round. To me, I still think if you want to be aggressive and say like Jadarian Price is our guy, you can trade up and be aggressive, and then get some of the talent that was still on the board defensively when it came to the end of round 1.
Yeah, although I'll say this about the defensive stuff with them, as long as Mike Macdonald's their head coach, I'm just going to believe that whoever they roll out there on defense is just going to be like insane.
Yes.
So like I fully trust him to. Plus, I think. Like I don't think it was too much. Like as long as you have Devon Witherspoon out there and like, Demarcus Lawrence who had an insane day, like Ernest Jones, like all those guys out there. Not even to mention, dude, there's just an insane goddamn team, dude. Like, Eman Warrior, I didn't even mention him, like the rookie from last year. It's like as long as they have those guys out there, I'm just gonna be like, yeah, they're fine.
Yeah.
It really was the offense. I was more like, this is what we're doing. Like I feel like they're kind of signaling like they're about to pass the hell out of the ball.
Yeah, but even
with their new coordinator,
it does make me question like it's someone like, and you're considering the splitting carries with someone like Jeremiah Love. You're worrying about like what the numbers would be like ball carry wise. Like how many carries are you going to give him, especially early on in his NFL career where he hasn't seen that at the collegiate level. To me, I think he's ready for it. I think you can give him that. He can be like someone who, especially stepping behind a good Seattle offensive line, to come in and be effective, especially. With last year, the scheme that they were operating with, I think if they're able to at least have some of the same run concepts, I think that'll work really well for him.
Nice. All right, what's the next team?
Next team, I have the Bills. To me, it's weird because I like some of the players that they got. At the same time, it does feel kind of almost like boom or bust for a lot of these players where it's like they're either going to do really well for you or they're going to stink. And like to me, the first one that comes to mind is Davison Igbinosun. And look, this man 2 years ago was getting completely fried by everyone, and especially the penalties. And it got so bad even that there was even a rumor started that his defensive coordinator had him wear oven mitts because of him grabbing so much. He came out and said that was a lie put out by the defensive coordinator, and they've since like had beef. And then actually, like, you would come out and say like didn't happen, and it's been like profusely denied by him that like that just didn't happen. But to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised with how many pass interference like penalties he's drawn by being too physical. He's someone that like if you can get him to trust his instincts, to rely on like his athletic ability and his ability as a DB, and because he has good instincts. It's just him playing too physical, him grabbing, especially with like towards the end of plays where it's like, all right, that's a good rep. Ball's in the air, and there's a penalty. Like to me, it's like finishing these plays off well and cleaning up some of the edges around him will make him a good DB, and that's making me question if the Bills were able to do that. So like it's when you have a prospect like that who could be so good for you, but like I think he just exemplifies this draft class of like he could be really good for you. At the same time, like if he resorts back to what we saw from the collegiate level of him, you're going to see a lot of penalties. You're going to see a lot of hate from the Bills fans, and it's just not going to be good. I do like that they added T.J. Parker, who's someone like, especially like, he can come in and make a good impact for you on your defensive line. I think that the Bills, like we talk about old defenses, like they had a great defense last year. It was still very old.
They couldn't tackle for shit.
Yes. Good pass defense. Sucked at run defense. Anyone could run on them.
We saw it.
Anyone can and could and just ran on them.
Besides like one or two games where they kind of like finally like manned up. Sorry, I don't know, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like it was just like, okay.
So that's what kind of makes me, when you look at this as well, like interesting to see like what did you do to kind of really fix that? You added edge, you added DB. And then you added a linebacker in Caleb Elarms-Orr, who I kind of liked from TCU. I was still like iffy on him. I was like he has a lot of good things that I like, but then I'm like, it just needs too much development. I think that to me once again exemplifies this draft class where I'm like, I really like that rep. And then I'm like, I didn't like the next one. I do really like that they added Zane Durant from Penn State in the 5th round as like a defensive tackle. Like once again, instant impact on your defensive line. But I once again addressing things earlier and going out there and getting guys who can make immediate impact on a defense that is getting older and struggle with the run was my big concern that they didn't address.
Yeah, the Bills are in a weird spot. You got the new head coach in there. You have Josh Allen, who was crying, and the owners were crying with him after the game and all that stuff. But the DB one's interesting to me because they've taken a lot of swings at DB, and now I mean the most recently with like the Kyrie Elam stuff, we ended up on the Cowboys getting burnt. So it's like I'm hoping that they've learned some lessons in the past with the DBs they come in. That they've drafted in the past, and you hope that they can figure it out from there. I don't know. I agree that this was one of the weirder draft classes to me with the Bills.
And I keep saying, and another player, Jalen Kilgore is what they got on day 3. To me, he's interesting because he insane athletic traits. Like you can definitely work with him. It's just ironically the football IQ stuff. And it's funny because like I remember like reading something from the Athletic on him. Like he's a high risk, high reward, and it feels like that's the entire Bills draft class. Is like if this really works out for you, it really works, and I think they can maybe hit on a couple of these, but it's just tough, and I think that to me is going to be like it really is like I need to see how this shakes out.
Yeah. All right. What's your next team?
My final, let's see more team. It's the Texans. They had CJ Stroud conversation. We talked about this to end last season. I still really like CJ Stroud, and yes, I'm not going to say all of it wasn't his fault at the end of the year. With that being said, most of it wasn't his fault because of the offensive line. And the Texans came in with a clear need, and they got that at the end of the first round with Keelan Rutledge. I still think Emmanuel Pregnon is better than Rutledge, and maybe not Pregnon, but it's tough because they're in a weird position later in the first round where it's like you clearly can't maybe get a guy that can make an immediate impact on the offense. I think I'm blanket. I think you're able to get somebody who can come in, and Rutledge. I still think that there was it clearly was a pick of we liked our guy better than.
Yeah, did they need to trade up for him?
I don't think so. I think he would have been their second round for them, and that to me is why I'm but if you like your guy, and you need it. This is an immediate need for you of offensive line. This is someone who needs to come in and make an immediate impact for you because of how bad your offensive line truly is. But the medicals are an issue. He had some foot troubles in the past, so to me, there's things that I think they. I completely understand the sense of you want your guy, you like him, go up and be aggressive with it. I still look on this and say I think he would have been there for you round 2 if you wanted to be aggressive and try and get him. So I just you're getting someone who can be aggressive and has that good toughness, especially on the interior. I think there were better prospects available when it was their time, and I think especially you kind of reaching on him a little bit is what got me. But Caden McDonald, I really liked him from Ohio State. It's funny because they did they were asking all the prospects what do your teammates call you, and he was they call me K-Mac, Big Mac, and Big Pounder, and I was like Big Pounder. So I was like that he to me I have to call him Big Pounder now. And I really like him. I think to me he was the best D tackle in the draft class, and he wasn't.
And he goes to the Texans.
Yes, he wasn't the first off the board. He wasn't the second off the board. He was the third off the board to the Texans. I was insane. Clearly, not a need that they if they're. It's not a major need when you consider how.
But if you had one area to address with the Texans defense. It probably was D tackle.
Yeah. At the same time, I was the fact that he's still there for them, I was like, this is a problem. He's going to be effective and he can come in and make an immediate impact for you. So I was like, all right, I'm a little scared for his Texans defense because especially you're getting someone who he doesn't need to come out there and be super effective. You can have him just as a run defender. When you have Will Anderson Jr., you have Daniel Hunter. You're not saying, all right, we need you to
Just
go
clog up the middle.
Yeah, just clog up the middle. We don't need you to go out there and be this crazy pass rusher. Just be there. Like literally just be a body. So it's going to be interesting to see how he fits into that. I really like him there. Keelan Rutledge is kind of what holds me back from saying I need to see him especially and see how he fits into this. And then Kamari Ramsey, they got him in the 5th round as well. He's someone that I liked, but at the same time I saw too many mistakes that held me back from fully falling in love with him. I still think at round 5 that they're getting someone who can be pretty, who can learn in their system and come in later for them and be impressive.
Yeah, Ramsey, he was a guy I randomly heard about because, like I said, this was a draft I had paid the least my attention to, but I love DBs, so I was still like, all right, hold on, what's going on here? Ramsey was a guy who I was like, everyone was talking about, especially because I heard about him on the radio here, and because he went to USC, and they're like, oh, Swiss Army knife, you can play him anywhere, blah blah blah. He's fast and like athletic as hell. I'm like, that's great. He better go to the right system. And then he goes to the Texans. I'm like, well, that was the right system. I was like, that was one of the few where you're like, okay, yeah, like the one moment D'Amico gets his hands on these guys, it's like they're gonna go out there, they're gonna play with their hair on fire, and it's gonna be physical as hell. So I think that's a great addition for them in the late rounds to add to a defense that's already. I mean, we're gonna talk about them being probably number 1 in the league again.
Yeah, it's funny because he's someone that is so versatile and good at almost everything, but doesn't excel specifically in one thing where you can say all right, you can go out there and be a ball hawk first, you can go out there and be a physical run support safety. He can be the flex position that does everything for you, which I think so many times people look at that as a negative thing and say master good at
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Yes, exactly.
That's what they called my position in the Air Force.
Crazy. To me, it's mentioned as a negative like that. I think you're getting someone, especially on his Texans defense, that he can be told go play this role for us, and it'll be perfect.
Yeah, and like you say, he doesn't have to step in right away. You can put him in probably a dime package, and you're good to go.
It's just a lot of and I think I also don't like that they reached on Klein in the 2nd round as a tight end, but once again, it's a lot of feels like they like their guy, they're sold on it, and at the same time, as much as we say a lot of the blame falls on CJ Stroud for that, they were think about where they were with a bad offensive line, and I think that to me it is crazy where it's if they're just a little bit more competent, this is a Super Bowl team. And even maybe a Super Bowl winning team. So.
Yeah, and Klein, while he might not be, I'm pretty sure, right? He's not one of the best pass catchers out there. But you get a big blocking tight end out there. If I'm CJ Stroud, I'm like, you know what? Good. I got Dalton Schultz. Just put this asshole as our 6th man on. Not asshole, but put this dude as our 6th guy on the line to help us block, and I'll be cool.
Well, I think Klein's listening to this what'd you say fuck me for?
I know. I'm sorry, bro. I'm sorry. It was just yeah. Sorry, I got NBA brain.
NBA brain is crazy, but hey, I get it. Are the Sixers losing already, or we haven't got?
No. They don't. I mean, the game hasn't started yet, but I mean, kind of. But the Knicks are beating the crap out of the Hawks right now.
Wow.
OG Anunoby started the game 4 for 4 with 10 points.
Yikes.
Hey.
All right. I've already mentioned one of my losers in the Rams, but I have a couple more to rattle off here before we close.
Okay.
49ers.
Yeah, okay. So this is where we talked about this offline. You hadn't heard about everything that gone on. So I need to ask you a question about this.
Okay.
Because one of the biggest conversations coming out after draft weekend was the whole draft board, consensus board conversation, which kind of happens every year, but it was really big news this year because of a certain NFL reporter for the 49ers asking John Lynch and Shanahan to their face at their post-draft press conference, hey, you guys seem to not draft with consensus ever, and it seems like especially your later picks in the draft never seem to pan out. He kind of, I'm paraphrasing here, but basically he was just saying straight to their face, you guys don't draft like everyone else, and it seems to be shitty. And, they responded, they said, oh, it's our board. And since then, it's created this whole conversation about, what is the draft board exactly? Who puts it together? Are teams actually paying attention to that? Should teams pay attention to it, or should you do your own thing? There's probably a mixture in there of give and take. My thing with it, and I'll just get this out of the way right now, there's a lot of arrogance from the media when it comes to stuff like this, right? Because like a lot of them will get like Dane Brugler's the Beast, or they'll look at PFF, or certain like high level like Mel Kiper kind of like draft analysts, and like a lot of times those guys, like if you're of the upper echelon like that, yeah, I'm sure I'm not sure, I know there are GMs and scouts out there and things like that who will pay attention to those, and like they'll listen a little bit because those guys are a little bit more tuned in, but they're not going through like the 300-person draft board that the media is putting together saying like, okay, this is the consensus and this is how we need to draft, right? Like, oh, I can't take this guy here because this intern at PFF, sorry, like said that this was like this isn't a good pick. There's a consensus when it comes to how everyone evaluates, but at the same time, the GM, the scouts, and everything like that, they have their own, like they're in their own little world, like they really are, and they're drafting based off of how they're told to look at guys and how they've been taught to evaluate. So, and it all kind of ends up coming together in the end because everyone, you're of the same mindset of like how you evaluate. Like there's not a lot of teams doing like weird stuff out there. So when the 49ers do kind of come out of left park with some of the picks they make, it does raise an eyebrow. But at the same time, they're also a team that has they're consistently making the playoffs, and they have consistent. I know they haven't won a Super Bowl, but like they have consistent playoff success. So are we as the media and us? I'll include as that. Are we in a real position to like shit on them for drafting a certain way? Probably not. But at the same time, it is something to look at because it is kind of like, why are you drafting like this? And if it doesn't end up working out, and there has been a pattern at times of it not working out, then maybe, yeah, I'm not saying they need to pay attention more to the consensus and the draft board that the media and everyone else puts together, but maybe there needs to be more of like a self-evaluation here of how they go about drafting.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's a weird position because, like, even someone like me, like, I watch all these mock drafts from different people, whether that's like the ESPN guys or like different YouTube channels. I'm reading the Athletics the Beast like thing,
Yeah.
and like I'm looking at PFF and I'm looking at everything, and I'm like, and then I'm looking at film myself and being like, I value this, I don't like smaller corners, like because there's so many things that I as an evaluator like. The same way with you, like you may like this, like you don't like this. We think this needs this player needs an exact scheme fit. There are so many different things that like you look at like in a prospect and say like, all right, like regardless of that, like if a team likes them, they're going to go out and get them. And I think that's like you're watching so many different things. They like their guys. At the same time, we can have a fair media discourse and say like, I don't like this. I think there were better options on the board. At the end of the day, it's like, and this is like, once again, I said as a disclaimer for everything, we'll see how it shakes out. Like, there's so many options of players that like we can be like, oh, that was a reach and it's worked out for them, or it's the same way where it's like that was a reach and it hasn't worked out for you. It really is like all right, like we're gonna see how this plays out. At the end of the day, like your livelihood and job is on the line with these type of things. Like for us, like we can sit here, we can talk about it like on a podcast and say like, oh yeah, like like. This is a decision they're making. And at the end of the day, they're at the combines, they're at the not say that we aren't, like they're at the combines, they're at the media days, they're at the pro days, they're at everything, watching everything on this, finding every little thing about them. Like there's that I know it's like unrealistic to quote that Draft Day movie, but they're like, oh, like there's that quote of like, well, nobody went to his birthday party. And it's like, oh, he's not like.
God, I hate that fucking movie. Jesus.
To me, it's so dumb, but I think like it's funny that like teams like will look into stuff like that, and there's genuine reports of like, oh, like he's not a team player because this happened, and you hear about like all the off the field stuff. Like teams take into account everything, and for us as media people to sit here and like, yes, we can be like, I don't like that, and we're doing it in a fair, discourseful way, and explain why. But at the end of the day, it's like, all right, like we'll see how it shakes out, and I think that to me is like my big thing with all that.
Yeah, and it was like because of the first pick, then the receiver dribbling, it was like the one they were getting a lot of criticism for. But
I got criticism as well. Don't worry.
Well, I mean, it's interesting though because like there were a lot of concerns about him from people, but at the same time, like I mean, he's crazy fast, but like at the same time, there were a lot of rumors coming out, not rumors, but like reports coming out like right before the draft of like, hey, like don't be surprised if he gets taken earlier than you think. Yeah. And the 49ers were the one to, I guess, to surprise everybody. So I think no matter who took him earlier than expected, they were going to get questions like this. But I do think the 49ers should deserve some kind of grace for it.
Yeah. Like, especially when you consider what they've been able to make, especially when you look at last year and the fact that their entire team was injured and they were still able to get into the playoffs and then, obviously win against a dysfunctional Eagles team, but it was still a win in the playoffs. Like, these things matter. But speaking of Stribling, all that to be said, I didn't like the pick. I didn't like the pick because to me, I watched a lot of receiver film. I didn't even have Stribling in my top 17 of receivers. And at that point, in the round one, there had been 8 receivers that went off the board. Or is that 7? Yes. 8 receivers. I still look at this and say, like, Denzel Boston for me. 8 receivers didn't go in the first round. I'm like, I have a bunch of stuff highlighted, and I'm looking at it wrong. A lot of receivers went in the first round. To me, Denzel Boston, and he went literally a couple picks later to the Browns. He's exactly what I think you're getting in Stribling, but better. And that to me is why I look at this and say, like, I like Denzel Boston's skill set more. At the same time, we've seen that, like, if the 49ers are intentional about their guy, especially when it comes to receiver, Ricky Pearsall, for example, they're going to go out and get them and say, like, forget the noise. This is who we want. We think he'll fit into our system. We've done our research. We're intentional about it. I think, to me, it makes sense why you're getting someone like Stribling who can come in and make an impact. To me, I still look at the board, though, and say, like, there were just simply better options here, where it's like I mentioned, Denzel Boston is right there for you. Jeremy Bernard was right there for you. Like, I look at this and I'm like, all right, like, I understand it. You clearly needed a receiver, especially, with everything that has happened. The Ayuk stuff, is still unfolding.
Oh, yeah, the Ayuk stuff.
Like, injury history, all of it. Receiver is a clear need. I don't like that you went Stribling in that direction.
Well, so I don't know. Because they brought in Mike Evans, who, he can still be productive in his age. Christian Kirk, Ricky Pearsall, like, you have, like, productive receivers in the building, right? We're not going to sit here and say they have like an all-star receiver room. But so to add him in, like, it's not like he needs to step in right away.
That's fair.
Although you would expect a guy drafted that early to be doing stuff where you're really early
and that's, once again, like, when you consider the positional value, I think Denzel Boston can come in and give you more of an immediate impact. And I think you're going to need to, and maybe you can, like, Mike Evans to me is like, I like him. I love him. With that being said, it feels like they're getting him at the worst time of his career, where it's like he's coming fresh off an injury, going to, like, he's been fully healthy, not fully healthy, but played enough where he can keep the 1,000-yard record going, and be impactful for the Bucs for so long. He has 1 year where he, like, has multiple big injuries that have sidelined him for the, like, majority of the season, where he's not able to make this record, and then he goes to a team whose medical staff just, like, everyone seems to be hurt. And I'm like, that just doesn't seem like a good combination. The 1 year he's coming off where he was really badly hurt, battled through injuries all season. He's now going to an injury-riddled, like, team that just, like, it seems like if we were to step into the practice facility, I think one of us will leave with, like, a hamstring injury or something. Like,
my knee would start acting up again,
like,
most likely.
What is that? Like, I'm like, we wake up and your back hurts or something, like.
I mean, that already happens for me, but yeah.
I didn't want to say it, but
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, like, it's a new thing that develops,
Oh,
like,
okay, yeah. Sorry.
All that's to say, I didn't like the Stribling pick, and then you look at the rest of the picks. Romello Height, I really like for them, and I think the positional value was good for when they got him. Kalon Black, I think, to me, like I mentioned, being in love with Emmett Johnson. I really liked Mike Washington Jr. from Arkansas as well. I liked them as better backs as well. Like, and I think you would consider, like, all right, like Christian McCaffrey. You mentioned the injuries. The 49ers were as badly injured as they were, and as badly injured as Christian McCaffrey has typically been in his career. He was the one player that was fully healthy for them all season. I don't know if you're going to get that, like, for another season from him. So I really like the idea of going out and getting an additional back to play support to him. I think the options that I mentioned of a Mike Washington Jr. and Emmett Johnson, even a Damon Claiborne, if you wanted to go a more speedy back, I think, to me, those were much better options than going a Kalon Black there. But once again, it felt like the 49ers, like, naturally, like every team does, are very high on other players. And they're like, hey, like, we want our guy. We'll go out there and get them and forget the noise, forget the rankings, forget where everything's at. And credit to him for that.
Yeah, I'll just say real quick, because I had a quote from John Lynch about it when he was asked about how they draft and their consensus, everything like that, and the players that they got. His response was, quote, "That's where we had them, and we had a lot of conviction on each of them," he said. "We got consensus in this building. That's the consensus I care about," end quote. Yeah. So, I mean, like, and that's perfectly fine, right? Like you can have your like, and because that's kind of what we were saying. Like every team has their own, like you're in your own bubble of like this is what we're trying to do. Um, but you can also question the process when there's some guys like if it's that large of a jump compared to like how everyone else had them viewed, you can be kind of like,
Yeah.
all right, what's going on here? And the 49ers have a weird history of drafting running backs. Like it seems like they're required to draft a running back in the middle rounds. And I don't know if any of those guys ever actually work out for them. Like it seems like they have better success with guys like in the seventh or even undrafted than they do drafting them earlier. So I don't know, man. Like I said, the 49ers they always find a way to have success with these guys in some form or fashion, it feels like. And even if they don't, their team finds success. And if I'm a GM and I have Kyle Shanahan as my head coach, who's like this offensive guru, I might just throw darts at the board too. Just like, screw it. Let me just try this out. Like, what can you do with this guy? Like, it just, maybe that's where they're at with it. But either we'll be saying this conversation will come up again because these players will look really bad, or it'll never come up again because they have continued success.
Yeah. All right. My next team that I think were losers, the Jaguars, and I think they were the one of the bigger losers of the draft.
This was another part of the team that was on the draft consensus conversation.
So they didn't have a first round pick. So it's immediately it's like, all right, like you're trying to maximize with like a lot of like mid round stuff, and how do you capitalize without having a first round pick, especially in what's considered a weaker draft class. To me, it's clear that like Eli Stowers was going to be a pick for them, and once again, credit to Howie Roseman for filling out the scene, saying like, all right, like this is what it's going to be, and being aggressive because the Jaguars said, oh, we still need a tight end, and they go a tight end that could have like I think would have been there round 3 if they wanted to go there, and maybe even 4. And there were much better tight end options. And look, they were able to, because they got 2 tight ends from the draft. Boer Kircher is more of a like run blocking, your type of tight end, and a run blocking, physical presence in that sense.
My type of tight end.
Yeah.
He's the type of tight end I need the Eagles again. He's not my type of tight end.
Now he feels like your type of tight end. I don't think you like. It seems to me like I know you like your Brock Bowers, but like I'm constantly hearing about like I like the run support guys that show up there.
Well, you know who I like what is my ideal type of tight end is someone the Jaguars already fucking had in Cole Strange, who is a good inline blocker and a good receiver. They already had him on the roster.
Fair enough. But they were able to go Tanner Cazoli as well as an option, Cazole as an option like later in the draft as someone who can be more of a pass catching tight end for them. I think the Bo Kircher in the second round when you have other needs, like to me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And the one thing I'll say that the only pick that I like fully was like in love with is Emmanuel Pregnon like in round 3. I think he should have went early round 2 even, but I like once again you talk about different draft boards and different consensuses. I think him falling to round 3 and getting him, even if he doesn't come in and make an immediate impact for you, give him a bit of time to develop, I think he could be a really good piece for them. But I'm looking over the rest of their haul, and I'm like, all right, like Albert Regis could be okay for you. At the same time, it once again felt like they were playing like a different game than the rest of the teams, and just being like, we like our guys, we're gonna go out and get them. To me, it feels like they like. At least with the 49ers, you can say like, all right, like I think they're in the right ballpark. They had a good sense of like they need positional need, and then saying like we're gonna go out there and get our guy that we feel like we think can fill that positional need. To me, the Jaguars were like, I mean, like what do we got going? Like it felt to me like they felt a bit more lost when it came to like their direction and what their board actually looked like. But I do like the Pregnon pick.
Yeah, sorry if I looked like I wasn't paying attention there. The Knicks are currently winning 60-19.
What? Yikes!
I've been getting like a million texts about it. That's why I was like, "What is happening?" And then because I have it on to the side, but I was like, "Oh my god." Anyways, yeah, sorry. That was just like Jesus. I haven't seen an asshole being like this in the playoffs in a long time. Anyways. Yeah, the Jaguars, and it was the all right, so at least when you were questioning the 49ers about this and they were getting asked it like to their face, they were at least had to be like, oh, look, like I can understand why you say that, but like this is how we do it here. The Jaguars felt a lot more arrogant about it, where they were just kind of like, oh, well, you look what we did last year. You guys aren't going to trust us this year kind of stuff. And it's like, all right, man, like I know you're like the new young guy on the block, like you're the youngest GM out here. That's cool, but like this looks almost like this could be like career ending for you if none of these guys hit. Like this is what kills GMs. Like you had a lot of success last year and you caught a lot of people off guard and but like you need continued success. This can't be, the Jaguars again who got beat by the Patriots on their way to that Super Bowl, right? Like, and then is a one-off, and then next thing you know, Blake Bortles is out, and you have a whole new regime coming in. Like this has been the problem with the Jaguars recent years.
The turning point for that is kind of crazy. They had a crazy defense that year.
Yeah, and this last year it was their offense that was carrying them, and obviously but they also lost a lot of like important pieces to this team this last offseason, and I don't know if they've made the correct steps to like, fill those positions afterwards where they can be productive. So I don't know, man. It was a weird draft where it was like, what does this mean for your future? But also like, how does this help you now? Because they are more of a team where I'm like, you need help now, like throughout the draft more than like a lot of other teams. When you have your quarterback on that contract, the recent success that you've had, like now was the time to put the gas on the pedal. And now it kind of seems like, okay, you got two different tight ends and the first one you got was early and he's just like a blocking guy when you already have Cole Strange out there. So maybe they're thinking this frees up Cole Strange some more. They can use him more as a weapon. That might be my way to like work my like excuse for them in this.
Another tight end who's supposed to be a weapon for you as well.
Yeah, and it's like, and Cole, maybe they're just like concerned with the injury stuff. I don't know, man. I'm like sitting here trying to make excuses for them, but it was a weird draft.
That to me is why I was like, all right, like, I get it. I can't fully love it,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. You have any other teams?
Two final losers. The Packers. The Packers and the Vikings.
Yeah.
I'll start with the Vikings because the Caleb Banks pick to me was really, I don't want to say head scratching because like when he's healthy, the potential you're going to get him is potentially one of the better defensive tackles in this class. Where you're going to get someone who can be extremely disruptive on your defensive line, and it makes sense from a scheme perspective wanting to get somebody like that. I also do like the Jake Golday pick as well, especially in the Brian Flores defense, and like trying to get him as someone who can like just be effective, and you can have him roam around and play the way he likes to. Dominic Orange as well, nicknamed Big Citrus.
Hey,
I'm really excited to see how he'll fit into that. I like both their defensive tackle picks.
Big Citrus. Where's he from? Why Big Citrus? Is he from Georgia or is he from here?
Dominic Orange. It's the last name.
Whatever. Okay.
Come on! Don't do that. It's a layup,
I like it. No, I do like it. I was just more like, where's he from? But okay.
I also like that they added Damon Claiborne later in the 6th round as like a really speedy back to me. Like if you were looking for the best speed back in the entire draft, where it's like you're getting someone who like just like straight speed, he clearly is that option for you.
They could use it.
My biggest issue, Caleb Banks at 18. Yes, I understand the fit. I understand the need. To me, like, this was like every mock draft, everything I'd seen, this was like Dylan Thieneman territory of like, they need a safety. And it wasn't just because like he's white that they were like, oh, like we lost our white safety. Let's replace him with another young white safety who does exactly the same thing.
The Eagles did it.
Yeah, clearly. But like, it genuinely the play style, like, and I think maybe that was the play style thing that you were like, all right, like especially you talk about that Brian Flores defense and the fact that like they are like constantly playing like at 100, whereas like, they are like very like high risk, high reward. Maybe you say like, all right, it doesn't make sense that Thieneman as a more like kind of ball hawk safety can fit into that, but I think he is like he's versatile enough where you could say like, all right, it doesn't matter. Like you can get him out there. He's the best available. The fact that he was able to fall to the Bears, like even better for them. And especially like literally, he'll play that Kevin Byard role for them that they just lost as like literally that ball hog who's extremely disruptive every time the ball is in the air. I look at this and say like I understand like the Caleb Banks stuff. To me, it was the entire draft process, and it felt like defensive tackle was one of the positions that you can look at and say like it was kind of more consensus. I think it was like, all right, Caden McDonald, big pounder, 1, and then it was like Caleb Banks and Peter Woods are 2A and 2B. And for Caleb Banks to go over Caden McDonald, to me, I was like, whoa, like, caught me off guard. And then I was like, Caleb Banks this early in the first round? Once again, you go out there and get your guy, and you're confident that he can, especially if he plays it, like, if he's healthy and you're getting the full capacity of him, he's going to be extremely disruptive. I I just can't still love justifying that right now.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm gonna sound like a broken record here, but the process of is like it was bad in my mind, and then so it's another example where I'm like, you could have traded back if this was your guy, you didn't need to take him right there. Like if they had traded back even just like a little bit later into the first round, gathered more assets and then taken him, I would have been like, all right, like that's fine. That was your guy. You got more assets and still got your guy. I can go with that, but to take a guy that early when you could have maneuvered around a little bit more.
Broken foot injury at the combine, like it's a risk.
Yeah. All right. What about the Packers though?
Okay, the Packers once again another like weird team because they didn't have a first round pick
Yeah.
because of the Micah Parsons trade. I don't say that I like in watching this like there's always prospects that I'm like oh like I really like I understand the thinking. I understand like the potential that they have. There's one player that I was watching this entire draft that like I was like I completely do not understand why he is as high as he is. And that was Brandon Cisse. To me like he is one of the like I like I don't wanna say I hate.
Yeah.
I like it,
You're not a fan of his game.
I'm not a fan of his game. I am like very very low on him. Like everyone, and to me, it's the fact that like he has the athleticism that you're looking for. He has the speed and especially recovery speed if he gets burnt. He still gets beat a lot because he doesn't have like the refined instincts of a corner. To me, I'd rather have it the other way, where it's like, all right, maybe you don't have the athletic tools, but you're a smart and intelligent, like DB that reacts and can one reacts quickly, but processes it really quickly. He to me doesn't have the processing instincts where I'm watching him and I'm like, all right, like he's getting places because of his athleticism, and then like if he like, and that to me is like the biggest question is at the next level. You talk about players being faster, bigger, stronger. To me, you need to have that intelligence and those refined skills at the next level, and you're going to have to work with that with him. And that to me is why I look at this and say, like, I don't like him as a second round pick because of especially how slow he is to react to routes. Like, anticipation to me is like, when I'm watching a DB, is like, I really want to see how you anticipate and read and react. And because of how slow he is to process it, it's a lot of like, oh, he's getting there, yes, like with his athletic traits, but like at the next level, it just won't cut it. Like, and that's where I look at this and say, like, I did not like watching him because I constantly kept seeing that. But the athleticism always took over, so it was kind of flash in a sense of like, oh, like, I like, he's making the play there. And it's like he's making the play because of athleticism, but at the next level against, once again, faster, stronger, and more intelligent receivers, it's just not going to cut it. So for me, I was looking at that and like, I instantly was kind of turned off from that. And then the Packers to get him round two, when I thought like, to me, he like 3 or 4 best, especially because the athletic tools are still there and you can work and develop that. I just don't think at round 2 was the good value there. But like that's solely just a me being picky thing. I did like the Chris McKellen pick in round 3, and then I did Sutton as well, someone off the edge from Penn State. I think he'll be really effective in that Packers defense. They added Trey Smack. Kicker from Florida who he went viral for his I think it was at the combine where he got iced by one of the scouts from, I think it was ironically one of the Eagle scouts was there as well, and he's getting ready to kick. They run out on the field literally as he's about to kick, like, all right, time out, have him redo it, and he hit from deep, and so I was like, all right, like I'm sold. Like that to me, like obviously not the atmosphere, not the roaring crowd, not the crazy winds or anything. But I think what we saw from him at his time in Florida, I'm really excited for. So, and it's better than Brandon McManus, who, personal reasons, I think he should be out of there.
There should be a different Temple kicker in there, but yeah. All right, hey man, good stuff. Great stuff, great breakdowns. I'm jealous that I wish I could have been there for the show again. But
yeah, I mean, I had to get it out somehow because I was like, it's what's better than talking about 8 hours for it than adding 2 more hours of talking about it. So I'm up to 10, and I
I'm
can
glad you've caught the bug like this, man. I really am. Like, welcome in,
it
welcome in.
genuinely is a lot of fun. Like when you're
And
like you're turning on the film and you're like, all right, like and you start to feel personalized and be like, I'm starting to like realize like, what I like in players and like that's my style of player. That's what I would want, and just understanding it a bit more.
yeah, and you figure out what positions you like scouting more, which ones you're better at scouting as opposed to others, and then you just kind of build on your strengths like that. It is genuinely like a lot of fun once you get into it, man. Like we talk about all the time with Ramir, former WHIP Temple guy. Like it's like once you catch that bug, and then once you're doing it consistently year to year, and you're watching these guys get into the NFL and develop and hit or not hit, like you can sit there and be like, oh, I remember this. Like I said, he was going to be good. He was a 5th round pick, but I told people like give him a couple years. Like it just makes it so much fun, and that's part of the fun in the draft in general. Even if you're not like a film junkie like we can be, like even just as an NFL fan, like this is what makes the draft so much fun, right? Like, it's the hope of all these young people like coming up and making it in the league. Now, of course, statistically, if you're not a round 1 or 2 pick, the numbers are against you, but it's still fun to project and feel like, well, okay, here's what they can be, right?
Like they always talk about like Brock Purdy being Mr. Irrelevant, and now it's like he got this crazy contract. He's one of the better
Wait, what team drafted him?
49ers.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I know, like after all the talk we've had, it is ironic, but I still look at this and say like it really is just a like let's figure it out type of game. Like
Yeah.
everything's in now, and like I'm really interested to see. But this is just my personal takes of like watching everything, analyzing everything, looking at all these different sources, and getting a sense of like, all right, this is what I like in a prospect, and this is what I don't like, and my thoughts on that.
I love it, man. I love it. The draft is a great time every year, and it always I'm excited more for the off season and to training camp starting up and everything, man. It's gonna be a good time. Well, I think that's it for us, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, great job, Jay. That was a lot of fun. If we didn't touch on your team and how their draft went, I apologize. You can see we just went 2 hours and we only touched on like I don't even think half the teams in the league.
Yeah.
I promise you, when we get to the off-season shows and we start talking about previewing the regular season, we'll get to your teams and how their draft went in the offseason in general. So don't worry, those breakdowns will come. Sorry, Mom, we didn't talk about the Broncos, but we'll get to that at some point eventually. But in the meantime, thank you everybody for listening and talking with us. We really appreciate it. Everyone that interacts with our content. We hope you enjoy this, and we'll be back with more NFL content soon enough. Don't worry. But of course, we'll still be churning out NBA and WNBA content now every week. So thank you everybody who's been listening or watching. We'll see you again soon.